thanks very much for coming up to see us on the show today, gents. We've got a double act, so we've got installer and customer both been on the journey from I assume no renewables in your home to having a lot of technology installed. And obviously for yourself, did you start off life as a heating engineer and progress into heat pumps? What was your journey?
So originally it was I've been in the industry since 2003 when I done my apprenticeship with British Gas. So I was there for 15 years, man and boy, all the way through, if you like. And then when they made a load of changes in British Gas, there was a lot of redundancies and whatnot going on, and the company was changing its structure. I started looking around, and I was headhunted by Tesco Maintenance to run their an area for looking after all the refrigeration. So in the stores, installation, servicing, maintenance, and everything of anything to do with refrigeration. So I got into that, and then was there for a few years, and in doing so, loved renewables because we got involved with some solar projects as well, and a few other bits and pieces whilst I was there, and could see that there was a pretty good gap in the domestic market. So I thought I'd try my hat there, and it was around just before COVID.
Ooh.
And it was sort of around that time, and the world was changing, and everyone was going a bit mad. So I had the epiphany to quit a very, very well-paid job, and set up on my own.
Ouch!
And then we went into lockdown.
And no furlough pay or anything like that.
Well, luckily it was sort of as I was leaving sort of Tesco, they were going through some changes. So as I went to hand my notice in, I was given redundancy, but they couldn't make me redundant, obviously because of COVID. So I was paid and set up, and it was all.
Actually, it was quite well.
I fell in a bucket of and came out smelling of. And it was perfect. So it gave me a really good chance to set up JMR, and then we started off like any normal business, doing toilet swaps and tap changes and the odd boiler, whilst always advertising for renewables. Got involved with Heat Geek at the very, very start of it.
Oh, fantastic.
In the original pilot, if you like, when Adam first started it. Got him in with a load of great people. And then Kimbo Betty's course, Northampton Heat Academy, heat engineer, Nathan Better Teach, Nathan Gamblin, got in with him, fell in with the best crowd of people at the right time. And then that's it. And it's just gone on from there. And now it's just pretty much purely renewables. And
it's so that you say it was the company's JMR?
JMR, yeah. And then.
And was it what did JMR?
It stands for my three children, Jensen, Matilda, and Roman.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's where it come from. So obviously I'm Mark, so the M's in there. My wife's Jessica, so it's all of our initials.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's where it come from.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's essentially set up as a family business.
Yeah.
That's now bigger than what I expected it to be, and yeah, bigger than me. So.
But what an incredible journey when you consider. I mean, there must be thousands of British Gas engineers up and down the country.
Yeah.
And you know that maybe that journey into being self-employed and running your own business and actually, you know, going out there and doing renewables full time probably feels like a pipe dream or a long way away, and that you've shown that transition can happen. And
it can 100% happen. Like anyone can do it. Like there's no question about that. I mean, especially the guys at British Gas. I mean, they're trained in customer service skills just alone. They're trained at no end. They're brilliant at it. You know, they know the boiler market like the back of their hand. There's going to have to be some training in heat pumps and, you know, the hydraulic side of it and heat loss and that type of stuff. But that can be taught. Mm-hmm. But the fundamental skills that people really need to set up their own business is, you know, communication, customer skills, organisation, that type of stuff. You know, most guys have got it. You know, so they could do it.
Yeah, I think it's the fear of failure which stops people. Because in lots of industries, people stay with the same company or in the same sector. They never go out and do their own thing. Yeah. And it's often a redundancy or a restructure that pushes people to think, perhaps I could do this.
A global pandemic.
Yeah. Trigger moments.
Yeah. But it's true though. It's you know, when you're stuck in not stuck, but when you're in a job and you're getting that every month that pay lands, and you look around and you've got the kids and the mortgage and stuff, it is difficult to go, I'm going to change. Yeah, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and do something else.
I always think it's one of the things that doesn't often get mentioned with that, and it might play into your story as well in terms of going down this route of the technologies. But the partner on the other side of this, the person who's backing you to make that decision to actually step into that world and give it a go.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's amazing to hear the success stories. But I guess there's a similar leap of faith when you start going down the route of experimental technologies in the early days.
Yeah.
What does your journey look like? We caught up before the show and talked a little bit about where you're at now, but I think for the viewers at home, what was that like from kind of right at the start to where you are now?
So we moved into our house in 2000, 4-bedroom detached house, fairly standard build, and we decided we wanted solar panels, and this was in 2011. We went with solar panels because we wanted to generate our own electricity. But at the time, they were really expensive. It was 15 grand, I remember, for our solar install. And the company that did it was a local company. They did all the quotes and worked it all out for us. And they said the payback would be sort of 7 to 8 years. So we thought, yeah, okay, well, let's go for it. And we did. So we spent the 15 grand, solar went in, and we saw the generation of our own electricity, which we used locally. We were at work at the time, working away most of the time. So a lot of the electricity was going out to the grid. But their forecast was accurate. And actually, we got the return on the money sooner. And we're now, as people term it, they're on the golden fit. So we've done extremely well. But
this is the for those who didn't maybe before FITS was around. This is the feed-in tariff. So you're getting paid pence per kilowatt hour for everything you generated, was it? And then a deemed amount that you would export onto the grid.
50% deemed export.
Yeah. So it was attractive.
For 25 years. Yeah. That soon was reduced by the way Ofgem as they cottoned on. They've over-egged it to begin with.
Yeah.
But, it was a learning curve for them as well.
But so at this point, no energy storage. So as you say, during the day, you were out at work, so the majority of what you were generating was being exported.
Yes. Yeah.
If the FIT wasn't there in the export tariff, that would have been you'd have been supporting the grid and doing a very nice thing, but you wouldn't have been getting any money for it.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
So from then we went into getting a battery, home storage battery. That was 2018. Got Tesla Powerwall. That was with the original Gateway 1, which was the non-backup, because that's all that was about at the time. And then we got electric car. We were still commuting at this time. So the solar and the battery were used predominantly to charge the car. We then got a second electric car, got rid of all of the ICE cars, the combustion cars. Then we left our jobs and sort of worked from home. So we set up our own glass studio, which has got electric kilns in it. So our electricity usage went up quite tremendously on a daily basis. We weren't charging the cars so much because we weren't doing the mileage. But we were using the energy to run the kilns and what have you, and charge the battery up. So we were finding we didn't quite have enough solar, so we added some more solar, as you do. I think quite often a lot of people do that who have solar. They don't buy enough to begin with. My advice is buy as much as you can fit on the roof, because you never hear people going, "Oh, I've got too much solar." They always say that they don't have enough. And then we've just added a second battery. Mark's done an install for us for an air source heat pump, and we just had air-to-air fitted as well into the glass studio and the photography studio.
So when you had the heat pump fitted, so it was for those watching that maybe haven't come across the kind of air-to-air and air-to-water. So a traditional, I assume prior to that you were on a traditional gas boiler?
Boiler? We had a 20-year-old gas boiler which was installed in the property. So like a really basic, no modulation on it at all. It was just numbers 1 through 6. That's all it did. No condensing or anything posh like that. No. And it was on its last legs. It had done 22 years, and it was
Good innings.
Yeah, it was a good
Yeah,
innings.
no,
It was a
fine,
good
yeah.
boiler, an ideal boiler. So, thumbs up to that. Serviced regularly and looked after. But we thought, well, it's going to die, so we need to do something about it. Didn't want to put another gas boiler in because I wanted to get off gas and to get it removed from the property. So we went, the only option, really sensible option, was heat pump. We'd looked at infrared heating, but it was just too expensive to run because it's just a 1-to-1 efficiency, so 1 kilowatt in, come 1 kilowatt out. So the only sensible option was the efficiency from a heat pump.
And I always think this is interesting because we see a lot of people come through and the driver is to get off gas. And I referenced him quite a bit, came off the show. I always think his story was really interesting. A guy called Mick Wall.
We know Mick, yeah.
From Energy Stats UK as well, and he puts this post out. And he came on and talked about his journey, and I think same kind of story. Started off with solar, and the hardest thing that he found to actually fully get off gas was the gas hob. It was I guess
his partner,
but possibly, it's the cooking part, isn't it? It's the feel of the cooking. It is, and he messaged me a few weeks back, and he's finally gone to an induction hob, and cool. The gas meter's gone. But I'm assuming, are you on gas induction or electric induction?
Electric induction. Yeah, the only reason we had gas was the gas boiler and a gas fire in the front room, and that was it. So once the gas boiler had gone, we disconnected the gas fire at the same time.
And it's a hidden saving in that, isn't it? I think a lot of people, when they talk about the savings against heat pumps over, a gas system over electric system, it's this kind of ratio of kind of 3-to-1, and then you talk about the pence per kilowatt of gas is 3 times cheaper than a pence per kilowatt electric. So you need to hit certain levels of efficiency to make this work. But that kind of hidden cost of, I think, somewhere around £100 a year, maybe
£120 a year, standing charge.
Standing charge comes off the bill. So,
and there's also the efficiency. So our gas boiler was at best 75% efficient, because it's so old. So instantly you're throwing away 25% of your heat.
Which is not added into the equation when you're doing that calculation. Is it? Yeah. That kind of 3-to-1, I guess, is assuming both systems are operating to maximum, or certainly the gas boilers operate to maximum efficiency. And so, in an average day, what are you kind of? Because I guess the investment in all this equipment, a big factor is that you get to a point where your electricity consumption from the grid has dropped significantly with the generation and with the storage. Might be a little bit out for you, I guess, because you've got the kiln there to do the glass work, so it's maybe not representative of an average household.
We're not a typical household in terms of usage, I guess, so we'd probably be a high electricity usage household. We're probably 20-25 kilowatts a day on average, with some days when we're charging the electric cars or the heat pumps on full in the winter at -2, it can be 100 kilowatts. But that's the exceptions rather than the norm.
And you must, I would guess for a lot of people, we have some viewers who watch the show that are really at the start of their journey. So actually, going down this route, we recently launched our digital energy saving advice service. So this enables people who are right at the start, not necessarily considering heat pumps or solar or anything like that. They can register on our platform completely free of charge. They get visibility of their gas and electricity consumption at kind of half-hour intervals, so they can actually start seeing in the day when they're using it. And then they can basically request a personalised energy-saving advice assessment, a report that we'll generate, and it gives them those recommendations of that journey. They've got a bit more personalised than a traditional kind of energy performance assessment. So we get a lot of people watching the show that are kind of right in that category, that maybe stargazing towards the homes like yourself as to what it looks like in the future. But where do you go next now, or are you done?
Well, the AC was the last. We've just fitted the AC, haven't we?
Yeah.
So that was like the latest addition to it. But I mean, you get to a point where if you've got all your energy covered, then
what next? Yeah, there's nothing else.
You don't need to do anything else. I'm sure John will find something. There'll be a wind turbine somewhere.
I was going to say, we talked about the Ripple side of things, didn't we?
So, for those who don't know, would you want to explain? I think Ripple is fantastic, and so we've been speaking to Charlotte, and I'm really hopeful that they're gonna come on the show. But for those who don't know, what is Ripple?
So Ripple's a cooperative that's been set up where individuals like you and me can invest in whatever projects that they're currently working on. So be it a wind farm or a solar panel farm, and you can invest money in that and then get paid directly into your electricity bill, just get savings off your bill. And you can decide how much you pay into it. So it's a very flexible system. It's quite difficult to explain, isn't it, to people. But that's the basic concept. Most people can't have a wind turbine, or perhaps can't have solar. So it's an opportunity to invest in getting renewables and green electricity, where you haven't necessarily got the facility for it.
It's up to 120% of your electrical consumption.
So if you took you measure your kilowatt hours for the year.
Yep.
So then with the Heat platform now you can now look, you can get your historical half value usage, you get your kilowatt hours, and then you go to them and you put it into some kind of tool and
put it in. They'd ask you what your yearly usage is. If you don't know it, there is also the option where they can go 3-bed house, 4-bed house, 2 kids, 2 kids, 2 showers and all that, and you can sort of see what your family looks like, press it, and they'll give you an assumption of what they think you are. So you can do it that way as well.
And you're limited up to 120%.
Yeah, because anything over 120% will bring in tax and all the rest of it, because you're going to then gamify it to an extent, aren't you? Because if you're going to start earning off it, it's going to go onto your energy bill, then there's going to be a surplus in that account.
I see.
So you're going to want to be at a value as you're just generating your electricity or your requirement for it.
And I guess the goal would be somewhere of kind of the net position of you spend X amount on your electricity every year, but if you can get back 120%, would the net goal be that your electricity bill is essentially zero or
covered? That's the idea, isn't it? Yeah. You're getting as close to having your electricity side of your bill covered if you can, and if you are using less and earning more, then you are going to cover some of the other side of it as well.
I think it's a great. I mean, I say when we speak to people about that are considering a heat pump being installed, their electricity consumption is obviously going to change dramatically from what it is now, and that was one of the conversations we were having with Ripple. Was if you combine this with a significant change in electricity consumption, you'd see the same if somebody was going through an EV, electric vehicle, I guess. But predicting what that change in consumption is going to be, therefore being able to then calculate what the 120% is of the new usage pattern, that's part of the work we've been doing, is to try and simulate what the impact would be. But if you can then, you then get a £7,500 grant from the government to install the heat pump. And one of the things we've been playing around with is actually, does that make more sense to put that in to a fund like that, where you're then essentially going to get the 7,500, where you're going to get another 20% back on top of it and get energy security for, what is the term that the Ripple
depends
projects?
on the projects, 20, 25 years, some of them.
So it's not as much of a cash cow as there's a feed-in tariff. But it's amazing, if you think you're making these taking these chunks out of your energy consumption by investing in this technology. And the final lever to pull is the level of control you have over the rate at which you pay for energy. And if you can significantly reduce that through an investment like this, I
think the main beauty of Ripple is that you're not owning it. So you're owning your shares, which is fine. But like John isn't going to move from his house.
Oh, you take it with you as well.
So the Ripple part of it is, it goes onto your energy supplier, whoever that is. So you're investing in a farm or a solar panel somewhere around the country. So if I moved from my house, I just notify them that I've moved. This is mine now. This is it. And then it just comes off of that to my new property. So it's not linked to the house. It's linked to your energy bill and wherever that may be. So if you move around the country, it goes with you. Unfortunately, we can take John's stuff. We just got to dismantle it all and then take it with us.
The new homeowner might be a bit cold when they move in.
Yeah, that's right. So you've got a vast majority of the housing population in the UK does move about. People don't tend to stay in the same house forever. Circumstances change, family gets bigger, and all the rest of it. And then, so you may not want to invest the money into solar. Ripple gives you that option.
It's a great idea. I'm not going to talk anymore about it because I desperately want to get them on the show.
Yeah,
if they want more exposure, they've got to come on.
Yeah, and we just like it.
Because you've done it as well,
yeah. I've got it. Yeah, I invested in the latest solar wind farm they're doing, which I don't think goes actually live so I won't earn anything off it until 2026. But I'm paying for it now.
But I guess some of the timescales around this deployment of getting these big projects off the ground.
It's got to be investment, isn't it?
Got to be the investment fund, but I think with a lot of the noise around, certainly since Labour have come into power, making things a little bit easier around planning permission for those things. I know we've still got challenges around grid connection and what have you, but it's hopefully that will enable these projects to come online a bit quicker and get a bit more. Get a bit more.
The other side of it'd be great to see. I mean, we import a lot of energy, don't we, in this country from other places. The more of these projects you get, we're generating our own electricity. So even that's making the UK more self-sufficient at the same time. So if more of the UK can invest into these sort of schemes, cooperative, whatever you want to call them, it's just renewable energy for the UK then as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Reduces our risk on whatever goes on abroad.
It does. And we see that Norway's the great example of that, isn't it?
Very much so,
decarbonised and electrified, and we now pay over the odds for the gas that we buy off them. But it's some really exciting and innovative kind of projects and companies come along. And I think that not only the fact that Ripple have managed. I used to work for a company that built onshore wind, and it's a challenge. Every stage of that journey is a challenge. But not only to do that, but also to actually be able to go through the process of embedding it into energy suppliers and the process that it takes to get that and then get it onto your bill. The infrastructure they've created, I think, is
that must be insane. Yeah.
Because there's that getting anything onto an energy bill is a challenge. So you showed me your app before, and you actually see it as the contributions, the credit on your bill, essentially. So. Yeah, mega impressive, and I think you touched on your journey into the industry, and with the guys at Heat Geek, another great company doing some incredible things. I've seen their most kind of recent the little
the mini store,
but it's like innovation. It might not be suitable for every application, but like innovation in this space is
options, isn't it?
Yeah,
and breaking down some of the barriers. But the Heat Geek training. It's, everything we hear about that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Nathan Gamlin at Beta as well. Another great podcast. Let's say another podcast. But what kind of brought you two together? Because I think that's probably one of the challenges that most people have is. If you're thinking about this stuff, you need a Mark coming in. You need the companies out. So what brought you two guys together?
I found Mark. So it's like a dating website.
Yeah. Swiped right. Yeah.
Swiped right.
I found Mark because I watch a lot of YouTube. So I found the Heat Geek YouTube channel and then appreciated what they were saying and understood what they were saying, and then looked on their website for a local installer who was Heat Geek and found Mark.
So what an advert for Heat Geek as well. So anybody wanting to get into this, because finding, I'm going to say, good quality inquiries. We talked a little bit before the show around the early days you were going out and doing visits and not necessarily getting work out of it. But I guess when you get into the Heat Geek community, my understanding is there's an element of qualification before it comes to you. Is that right?
So you have to have done the course originally. You still have to now. You have to do the course, both parts of it, to even just be Heat Geek certified. And that just means you've done the course. Then if you want to go verified and elite, the other stages, they then vet you, your business. You have to then do installs, have them verified by another Heat Geek to make sure they're done to a certain level. So there is a proper sort of audit. Assurance on it and that throughout the whole stages. And even now, anyone new coming onto the platform, you would install a job, but then another Heat Geek who is of a certain level would have to come and audit that install to make sure it's to a standard that, that's fine. And if it's not, you've got to rectify it until it gets to that standard.
And are you at the standard now where you're auditing other people?
Yeah, I've been auditing for a little while, And to be fair, the guys that are coming through, because if you're going down the journey with Heat Geek to do the training and whatnot, you're a certain individual anyway, because you want to do better or you want to push yourself and all the rest. You want to learn more. So it's never a bad install. There may just be a couple of little bits, or you try it this way, or what if you could have done it like that. So the installs are usually of a very, very good standard. You know, I haven't seen a bad one yet. There may have been things that everyone would do differently, but the actual fundamentals are, you know, bang on.
That's such a good... not to knock some of the certification schemes that are in place, but we have regulatory certification schemes that you will be a member of. You'll be a microgeneration approved installer. You will be a member of a competent person scheme, I guess NIC or NAPIT, and you'll also be a member of a consumer code, either REC or HICE. So we have to have those things in place. And then when you think, well, what is the need then on top of that for a Heat Geek type system? But I think the big thing is that everything there is regulatory. This is kind of like
that's all administration to an extent. You know, are you really good at paperwork?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, then you tick all these boxes. But where Heat Geek then changes the mould, because they can do all that paperwork stuff for you. If you want to not be MCS and you want to just use Heat Geek as the umbrella, etc., like we did with John's install, then they will take all that off you. What they want is for you to know what you're doing and deliver a really, really good project for the client. And that's the key part of it, you know. And
self-policing, I guess, within
the community.
Yeah, and that's such a huge part.
Yeah. I mean, you see all the Facebook groups that are about, and some of them, like the abuse some people get on them is mad. But within the Heat Geek private groups that they've got on their own Facebook, Heat Geek Awakening Mastery, the questions and answers that get put on there are brilliant because everyone's of the same mindset. So it's all about helping each other. Yeah. So it's a fantastic platform to be a part of.
And that's definitely a recommendation. Anybody I've seen Adam's work as well, and I think he's doing great things for the industry. So anybody that is out there that is just starting on that curve and maybe going self-employed, getting into heat pumps.
Oh yeah,
you know, because I think there is certain elements of the regulatory processes that are box ticking exercises, as you say, the paperwork, even down to some of the training that's available. I think back in the day when I was doing my heat pump training, you'd go on a 5-day course. 5-day course,
and you ticked off. It doesn't give you any actual skill.
No.
It just you've looked at a PowerPoint and you've passed the test. You know, with Heat Geek, it's essentially built to fail, and then you go back and where did I go wrong? And then you go onto the community and ask a question. Right, I'm stuck on this one. Can someone help me out? What have I missed? And no one gives you the answer, but they'll point you. And it's the most frustrating thing in the world as well, because what you want is just the bloody answer. But you get pointed to a direction where you go and find it. And that's the bit, because that's how you learn, that peer-to-peer learning, which Nathan always goes on about. And then you've also got Kimbo Betty as well. So the Warmer Academy, which it is now, which was Northampton Heat Academy.
Yeah, you know, at the show the other week.
Yeah, some guys don't always like the distance learning. You know, some guys like to be in a classroom environment as well. Yeah. So where you can couple Heat Geek and Northampton Warmer Academy now with Kimbo, I mean, you've got the best of both worlds there.
And it is that when we talk about the leap for to really understand, not just, I don't think it's just heat pumps. I think actually a lot of this stuff is actually system design, hydraulic system design, understanding how these systems integrate into homes. It's an increase in skill level of the engineers that are designing the systems, not just necessarily mechanically installing the systems. So it is a complete package. But that's where, so you two, you raised an inquiry through Heat Geek, I assume.
We got from the website and then went direct to Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, so originally when it was then, so Heat Geek's changed obviously over the years and all the rest of it. So then it would be you'd go on the map, find your local installer and get in touch with them and see if they'd be willing to come and have a look, really. And that's where we came to. And
now you would, they do some kind of qualification?
So now you would go onto the website and then Heat Geek own the process and then give it out to the engineers. So so it's all managed by Heat Geek, whereas originally it was managed by the installer and we done it through Heat Geek. So it's slightly different now. So it's less admin on the end user now. It's more through their platform.
I guess it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So you two met. You say the swipe right.
Swipe right.
Yeah. And what was that journey like then? What was the journey like for you, John, from that point?
So it started off with Mark coming over to do a heat loss survey, which was to understand how much heat our house lost, and that was very intensive because you spent best part of half a day with us.
I would have said half a day easily,
going round, measuring up everything, every window, every wall, understanding what the house fabric was. And we had some specific areas which were colder that we wanted to highlight. And then on the back of that, I'd also done my own heat survey because I'm a bit of a saddo.
Energy enthusiast.
Yeah. So I'm very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
So it was good to be able to compare what I'd done to obviously what Mark done. He'd done his in a lot more detail than I did. But it came out with a heat loss calculation and what that meant room by room. So what rooms were our best performing rooms and our worst performing rooms. And then we talked about what I wanted from the system, because we're coming from a gas boiler and with traditional wet radiators with micro bore, we were a bit of a more difficult install. Mm-hmm. But I also wanted to do a 40-degree flow temperature, so I wanted a low temperature flow system, because I knew it would be more expensive to install, but over the long term it would be cheaper for us because it would be cheaper running. Heat pumps are more efficient if they run at a lower temperature. So we worked out what that was, and that meant 16 radiators being replaced. From 17 in the house, and the only reason we didn't replace one of them is we couldn't really get to it. So.
Can't get it out,
And it's in the downstairs toilet, so no one spends too much time in there, so it was fine. We talked through, Mark talked through exactly what that meant, where it had to go. For our install, it also meant we needed planning. So I was chatting to you earlier about where the heat pump was going. There was 2 or 3 options on where we could locate it, and me and Mark walked our way through it. One was at the front of the house, which probably wasn't as a no-goer. One was at the back by the kitchen window, which meant a long pipe run for the primary return and flow. And the other location was down the side of the house, so that's where we went with. But that meant slightly shorter pipe runs, still fairly long by most installs, but because it was closer to 1 metre to the boundary fence, we needed to get planning permission for it.
It's an added complexity in the journey.
Yeah, and durations, 4 to 5 weeks, added to the timeline. Thankfully, it was in the summer, so our heat pump was installed in July last year. It wasn't really a major problem. It wasn't heating season at the time. And we had, the boiler was working, but we weren't using it effectively because we've got an eddy, My Energy eddy, so a diverter for solar to heat our hot water at the time. So we were using that. So there was no real urgency, but we needed to get it done before the winter that was coming in 23, 24.
Wow. I always think that it's an interesting one when we talk about that kind of pre-assessment for a heat pump installation. In some ways, I actually think it does a bit of a disservice to the person going and doing it, because what you're actually doing in that scenario is it's like an energy audit of the home.
Oh yeah.
You're not walking in going, can I fit the heat pump down that alleyway? You're actually looking at the measurements. You're doing a full home heat loss assessment. But that's a time-consuming process, and I suppose one of the reasons why I think it's interesting how we categorize that is because you're going there with a purpose. You have a customer who is interested in a heat pump. You supply and fit a heat pump, so you're going there to supply and fit the heat pump. If I was a customer who wanted a boiler and I rang up my boiler installer, they're going to pop around, possibly on the way home from work. They're going to pop the red in for 5 minutes. They're going to look at the model, probably give me a quote there and then, and tell me when they can come and fit it in a few days' time.
Yeah.
At no doubt a significantly different cost to the heat pump one. So when you get those inquiries, do you find that customers, I'm sure this wasn't the case for John, but do you find that the customers are surprised at the level of detail that you go into for an energy assessment? And I think we talked before that is a chargeable visit when you go and do that. If you turn up and for any reason, let's say the location for the heat pump, if there was only one location and actually it was in a location that needed planning and John wasn't in a position he could wait 4 or 5 weeks, you've still taken that time out, you've still gone and done that survey. Is that still a chargeable visit in that case?
For me, it's like anything. If it's a professional visit and you're going out to do something, you're going to spend a considerable amount of time, that has to be a monetary value for that, because it's running your own business. You know, you've got a level of overhead as well. Mm. So if you spend all your time just going around and then there's never any return, the business isn't going to last very long. The actual heat survey itself is showing you the heat survey in terms of that's the survey, this is what the heat pump needs and all the rest of it. But the other side of it is, as you're walking around the house and you're measuring everything, the customer, I usually, because John did as well with us, is I get them to walk with us. So as we're going around, all the questions that they've got around the install, the heat pump, what it means, get asked as well. So all of them questions are answered. You're also testing the electrics. You're also testing the water pressures. Can they have the cylinder, the unvented cylinder, or does that need further upgrades? Because it's not just, can a heat pump go in here? You know, what's the size of the radiators? Is it underfloor? Can it be an unvented cylinder? Has it got to stay as a vented cylinder? Does the mains pressure allow an unvented cylinder, or has there got to be upgrades with that? The electrical supply, is it looped? Yeah. It's always a pain in the backside. You know, what's the fuse cutout rating at 60, 80, 100 amp? Does it need 3-phase? You know, what's the max demand on that consumer unit? You know, can we actually put a heat pump on it? You know, there's so many things that go into the heat survey that we do, that it's not just, oh, this is the heat pump, this is your proposal. There's a whole raft of stuff that goes into it.
That's very,
it's a technical visit. It's a technical assessment,
you know, and I think that's the key difference that we certainly try and get across, in that this isn't you getting an updated EPC for your home, an updated energy performance certificate, where, you know, your previous one might have been done by the estate agent prior to building the house, buying the house. This is a very experienced, qualified, competent engineer coming and doing the assessment. But I think sometimes what's happened is we've, in certain circumstances, they aren't the people that are going out.
Yeah.
So I think I can absolutely understand it from your perspective, because that is I think you said earlier, you would knock that cost of the visit off the job if it did.
Yeah, when they go ahead, we take a deduction off the proposal, because you've moved ahead with us. Because the report we give, it's about a 40 to 46 page report that shows everything about their home, all the rooms, the highest performing, worst performing. But we take pictures as well of the whole house. So for each room, it shows the radiator, the size of the pipe work, routes of where the pipe work will go, where the heat pump will be situated, all the results of the water pressure, the electrical tests and whatnot. So if they had that report, they could then send that to 6 or 7 other companies as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that every single person that goes around a house to do a heat pump costing is going to be a chargeable visit, because if someone sent me a report like I've done, I could quote that from home and just say, well, this is what I think the cost will be for your heat pump. If you are going to go ahead, I do need to come and survey it, because the price may change once I've seen it, but I can give you an estimate based off of this heat loss report. So a customer doesn't have to spend that money with every single engineer to do a heat loss or a technical assessment. Every home does need a proper in-depth technical assessment, whoever that's by. So that's either the government has to look at doing this as a job, maybe, that it's put out there, so it's a proper technical assessment of houses, or each home looking for the heat pumps, they pay to have this technical assessment done. But you don't have to pay 10 times for that. That's
the interesting part, actually, isn't it? If you view this as, first of all, it's an investment in an energy audit and a mechanical and electrical audit of your home and the journey that you need to go on. And I suppose the good thing is, and I'm sure this wouldn't be the case, but you know, there's probably a business and a job in itself just going around doing those surveys.
Oh, I think 100% there is, and I think people will go that way, especially with these sort of like the retrofitting stuff that's coming and all the rest of it that they're doing with the courses with that. But with the software that we use, heat engineer software, it's fantastic. You can do it yourself as a homeowner. You could do what we do. But when you create the report, if the customer then said, oh, actually, we're going to look at doing 300 mil loft insulation, I press a button and I create another report with that on it. Oh, well, we're going to do triple glazing, right? I press that's another report. So I could do 4 or 5 reports with wall insulation, cavity wall, double glazing, etc., and give that to them each time. and say, right, there's all your different reports. There's the different heat losses. If you invest X amount of money, your heat pump would now be this. Or if you don't, it's going to be this. And then they can see the difference.
It's a great way of doing it. And I suppose for the customer, I don't know if you did this, John, or not, but I would guess, they say, once you've got that report, the thought of having 2, 3, 4 people come around your house to do that same level of assessment, outside of the time it would take, if you had to pay for those reports 3 or 4 times. But I suppose the opportunity is you can validate the quote ultimately that you give at the end of it for doing the installation. You could, if you wanted to, send that out to 2 or 3 or 4 other people. I suspect what you'd find is that you might end up with a slightly cheaper price of somebody else, but actually the diligence that you've done in that first visit shows that actually, the quality of not just you as a person, but you as a business and the level and the standard that you go to. And I think that when you're making this kind of significant investment, which it is, you need somebody you can trust that goes to that level.
You generally buy the person first, don't you, before you buy the product.
100%.
Yeah. And if you always speak to the customer beforehand, there's always a few telephone calls, emails exchanged, maybe even we do Zoom calls as well, so we can have a chat face-to-face with them and explain the process. So by the time you get to that survey, they've pretty much had a feel of what it will cost, and then they're just going through the stages now. Yeah. But I think it's vitally important because the level of investment that you're going to spend on a heat pump, you need to do that heat. Like that foundation has to be set properly.
Yeah, it's doing it. It's doing it right.
Yeah, 100%.
And how is the heat pump? How long has it been in for now?
It's been in just under a year.
This isn't the point where you go, it's freezing.
Oh, it's good. No, it's absolutely perfect. Yeah, it's better. It's actually working better than we thought it would.
And how are you finding that relationship with the solar and the battery? Are you, because we're not blessed with a huge amount of sunshine in the UK, but the kind of assumption is obviously the sun is shining in the summer months, we want heating in the winter months. So actually these two systems don't talk to each other, don't need to talk to each other. Do you find that there's any increase in the amount of energy that you consume from what you generate going through the heat pump? Or is it, or do you find that it's kind of grid energy on the heat pump and solar is used for?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer. It depends on the time of year, obviously. Winter is the key one for heating season. So we'll tend to have very little solar power. So any solar power we have will probably be topping up the battery. We tend to shift our approach on how we manage our home energy. So in the summer, we'll be virtually off grid and running just on solar, and solar topping up the battery and doing the house, whereas in the winter we'll swap to charging the batteries overnight on cheap rate electricity and then using that to run the heat pump throughout the day. And then any surplus, any solar that comes also, goes into that as well.
But I guess then in the winter months, your ripple thing kicks in a bit more with...
Yeah, good shout. Yeah, so it's windy generally in the winter. So, you get a lot more benefit from that money coming in and the investment during the winter months.
So I suppose that's the last thing we need. Maybe that's the next challenge you need to solve is if we can harness the wind and we can harness the sun. If we can harness the cold in the winter months, we might be onto something.
Yeah. I think your system we worked on the heat pump monitor, we've got monitoring on it. I think it runs about 1.7p per kilowatt hour, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, to run the heat pumps 1.7p.
It's the cheapest one on open energy monitoring. On the tariff, yeah.
Nah, that's
well, I know what Adam Chapman likes to think it's his, but it most definitely
I've told him it is.
He's gamified it. Ours is the cheapest to run in the country on heat pump monitor at the moment.
That's for people who haven't come across it's heatpumpmonitoring.org.
That's right, yeah.
And I think that is it's Glyn.
Yes,
right. Yeah.
It's such an understated thing, but I think it's brilliant. Fantastic. It's this open platform. So I always, whenever we get somebody coming on saying heat pumps don't work, and I just say, well, okay, and no doubt when we do put the show out, there'll be somebody that comments on our TikTok, on our Instagram, say they just put that one line: heat pumps don't work. And the response is always just a link to heat pump. Because it's just you got your opinion. You have an opinion of it doesn't work, and then there's this vast amount of data showing that they absolutely do work.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a great tool. It's a great tool. Well, I think we've done some great product placement. We had to take the labels off the water bottles.
But we've done everything else.
The only one we haven't mentioned that seems to get mentioned every show is octopus, but I'm sure we'll cover that in the next one.
I've got a T-shirt on.
That's
a T-shirt.
Thank you very much, gents. We've got another episode coming up, so don't go anywhere just yet. But thank you very much for the time. That's all we've got time for today.
Lovely. Cheers. Thanks.